Welcome back to Politics Enhanced. Thank you so much for clicking on the video, and if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe as it helps small channels like mine take off. Today we're going to talk about Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and specifically what the heck is going on with the poll numbers, because as you can see, a lot of people are starting to predict now that it's very possible that Kamala could win, because when you see polls like this where Kamala has now just taken the lead, even if it's by a small margin, it still panics a lot of conservatives. And as you can see, here's the RCP average, and it shows that Trump was really leading Biden by a lot. Biden withdraws, and then Kamala takes over as the nominee, and boom, now she's leading the aggregate. However, there's a lot of problems with these polls that we're going to get into during this video today. But first of all, Kamala is only leading by 0.2 percentage points. And I would like to remind everyone that Donald Trump can still lose the popular vote by about 3 percentage points, and he can win the election through the Electoral College. So I just want to remind everybody that even though this is seemingly a very tight race, it's important to remember that Trump can easily still win this. If she was leading by 10 points, I'd say that's a different story, but she's not. And now we're actually going to talk about the polls, because everywhere it shows now that Kamala Harris is leading the polls, and you have the Democrats on Twitter who are celebrating now that, Kamala Harris is in and that Blumph is finished and it's over and what are we going to do? And the truth is, there's a lot of strange stuff going on with the polls, specifically that show Kamala Harris winning, because as you can see, a lot of the polls show now that she is winning. However, this is simply not the case. And for example, when you look at a poll like Survey USA or Morning Consult, and you look at the crosstabs, let's even look at CBS News. Here's CBS News. And if you scroll down to the crosstabs, right, which is the specific source, we have YouGov, you can see that it has the party breakdown. But notice that it mentions the sample, but it doesn't measure party registration, because that's key. If you don't know who you're polling, you can't give an accurate poll. So as far as I'm concerned, the CBS poll that shows Kamala Harris is winning by 1 point, when you look at the crosstabs, who did they poll? It just says 3,000 registered voters. It doesn't say, 1,500 Republicans and 1,500 Democrats, or however they should have divided it. So that's the first red flag, just coming out the gate, that we don't even know who they're polling. But meanwhile, when you look at a poll that shows Donald Trump winning, like the New York Times, that shows him up by 1%, bam. This is the New York Times, and it shows who they polled and the likely electorate and then the number of people that they polled. And you can see it really breaks it down. Here's the party self-reported. I mean, it shows the numbers. So why is it that the polls that show Donald Trump winning have the crosstabs and party registration, and the polls that show Kamala Harris don't? So again, if we look at the past, in August of 2020, Biden had a sizable lead. He was leading by about 6% in the aggregate, which is quite a lot, maybe even more, almost 7%. And he ended up winning the popular vote by 4.5 points nationwide. Now, if we look at Hillary Clinton in 2016, this will be a different story, because as you can see, in August, it was a little bit closer, but still, she was leading by a lot. She was leading by 7 points. Towards the beginning of the month, it was, much closer at 1. But the polls, again, overestimated Hillary Clinton, as they also overestimated Biden back in 2020. So the fact that Harris is a 0.2% lead and Donald Trump has been leading the aggregate for months now is massive. But this is expected, right? This is polling, and we know that Donald Trump is one of the only candidates, one of the only politicians who has ever outperformed his own polling. So my next point as to why we shouldn't panic is that Trump still leads in all the swing states, right? If we look at the electoral map without any toss-ups at all, we can see Trump still has a sizable electoral college lead over Kamala Harris. And we look, Michigan, it looks like that's closer. If we look at the polling there, we can see that Kamala Harris is a 2-point lead, but that's because of this one poll that shows she has an 11-point lead. And when we look at this poll, we don't see any crosstabs. We only see how people vote. This is a suppression poll. This is like the poll that showed Donald Trump losing Wisconsin by 17 points. Of course, that one poll is going to affect the aggregate. So let's say Michigan is, a point for Trump or whatever. How about Wisconsin? People say Wisconsin's getting closer. This Bloomberg poll, let's take a look at this. Bam, it just shows the same thing. It just shows how many voters were polled, but it doesn't show party registration. So it could have been, 10% Republican and 90% Democrat. Now, I'm not saying that's what it was, but what I am saying is it's strange strange? Why is it that the polls that Trump wins in, like Fox News, let's take a look at them, they show party registration. Here we go. Party registration. Look, Democrat, Republican, Independent. And that was a Fox News poll for the state of Wisconsin. So why is it that, again, every single poll that shows Donald Trump winning, they have the crosstabs, but when it's Kamala winning by a ridiculously large margin, like 11 points in Michigan, it shows no crosstab at all, and it just says how many people were polled. Something doesn't add up here, but I'm not one to call them out. Guys, this whole doom and gloom with the polling really needs to stop. As you can see, he's still leading in the swing states. I've done many election prediction videos. I'm going to do a whole lot more, especially as the election gets closer, but I just wanted to make this video and showcase that, guys, we have nothing to worry about. It's likely still that we're going to win if you look at all the metrics and all the data that actually shows who was polled and party registration, we win. And there's one more thing I want to cover today in this video, which is party registration. And I think party registration is something that really shouldn't go overlooked, because you have a lot of people saying that, for example, if there's more Republicans or if there's more Democrats than not, that's going to swing the election. And to some extent, there's a lot of truth to that. So as of right now, I have pulled up the 2024, the most recent party registration forum that shows that Republicans are actually a majority. There are more Republicans than Democrats if you exclude independents. But if you look at the Republicans, 30% of the country is registered as Republican, or at least likely voters, or 28% of likely voters are registered as Democrats. The rest are independents. And I know some people may say, oh, but that's a 2-point shift, or that's a 2-point difference, it doesn't matter, and the independents are going to decide the election. Well, the second part is correct. The independents have always decided the election. That's why they're called swing voter, because they vote one way or the other. But I want to take a look at 2020, because at this same point, back in 2020, there were more Democrats than Republicans. And we all know what happened in November of that year. Biden eked out a narrow victory, he won the popular vote, and now he's sitting in the Oval Office. I could go back to 2016, the infamous election year of that time, and as we can see back then in August, actually we have more data here. In November, there were more Democrats than Republicans by about 4 points, but the independents in the swing states broke for Trump. So even if there were more Democrats than Republicans, registered Democrats that is, then that still shouldn't deter any of us, because again, the election is decided in the Electoral College and it's a state-by-state basis. As long as Trump wins the swing states, which aren't congruent with the nation, folks, they're not. California and New York, they add a lot of Democrat votes nationwide. Talking about population-wise, they add a lot more Democrat support. But if you look at the heartland and the middle of the country, it's a much different battle. So I just wanted to share that today and talk about the polling. And guys, stay tuned for more videos, and we're going to have some fun predictions come out soon. And let me know what else you'd like to see in the comments down below so I can come up with more content for you guys. But in the meantime, thank you for watching and have a great day.